Episode 15 of the podcast. We're going to talk about the goal is a dog who is comfortable, calm, and cooperative. And in the second part, we're going to talk about how good behavior starts at home. This is the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I want to talk more about the ultimate goal for any dog who is going to be groomed or going to be at the vet visit, or for owners to be able to medicate or be able to, wipe down after the rain, But the ultimate goal is a dog who is comfortable, calm, and cooperative. And all of those things are equally important. And we talk a lot about this in lots of episodes, but I really want to drive it all home again and kind of do a little bit of a review of some of the things that we've already talked about. So comfortable and calm, that's loose body language, right? What I'm looking for is a dog who's not stiff and ready to pounce or spring. That to me isn't calm or comfortable. But loose body language, relaxed but not excited. It's okay if a dog greets us and wants to say hi, but to be able to calm down from that, right? To relax a little bit from it. And I've given examples of my own guys who are like, oh my God, hi, it's our vet. We love you so much. Okay, and now we calm down. All right, and they can do that. And then, okay, go play, have fun, right? So it's not about not being excited at all. It's about being able to relax. And cooperation, what I'm looking for is passive cooperation. And what I mean by that is a dog who is willing to be positioned while we do stuff to them, while we do stuff around them, while we touch them with objects and things that make sound and things that blow air. So passive cooperation is different than active cooperation. Active cooperation is when, maybe the dog gives you their paw, like we ask for a paw and they give you the paw and then you do things to their paw. But as we've talked about previously, you know what? I just don't see that as a really helpful thing in the grooming setting because dogs don't understand that we switch to a tool that can now cut them. We deal with sharp objects, and certainly in the veterinary setting for the same reason. Like, no, don't give me your paw right now. Hold your paw still so I can check this wound. Right? We want them to be passively cooperative, to just allow us to do things to them and to feel comfortable with that. And being comfortable with that, I know that sometimes sounds kind of new agey, granola crunchy, wishy-washy. And believe me, okay, I'm a hippie freak, but the purpose is a dog that we can keep safe, a dog who's going to go with the flow and not feel like they have to continue to actively move around. Because next thing you know, like I said in the last podcast, it's like a dog who's like tapping your hand when you're trying to do stuff like, whoa, I'm giving you my paw. Whoa, 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 I'm giving you my paw. And that's not helpful at all. So to have the goal being a dog who is comfortable, calm, and cooperative, relaxed, loose body language, passive cooperation. So I know in many grooming settings, we're like, oh my God, that's not my clientele, right? And I get that. Man, I've been there, right? Like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this dog who is constantly like this or like that or can't handle that? And that's why I want to start explaining every single customer. We explain safety and we explain our safety policy. And we're going to talk about that because I think it is so important, and it's part of why we're having these groups come up and say groomers need licensing because we're worried that our dogs are going to get hurt at the grooming shop, right? And I feel for those customers, right? They're honestly worried that their dog's going to get hurt. However, are they armed with enough information about what our job is and what their owner responsibilities are? Don't send your dog to me if he's freaking out, even just being out of the house. That's not a grooming shop customer, right? That dog needs a lot more work with a different profession. Not grooming, that's training. I mean, I happen to do both, but we need to be sure that our owners are understanding that part. And that's part of why we explain the safety and our safety policy. And the way I usually explain that to my own customers, we start off by talking about how, all right, so every customer hears it so that they aren't hearing about it as an afterthought of, oh, by the way, your dog wasn't great. I want them to hear it straight up front, right? If at any time your dog starts getting really squirmy, aggressive, overly silly, or otherwise hard to handle, I'm going to slow everything down, right? At that moment, we're working on what your dog's brain needs to learn because we are working with sharp objects and we don't want to hurt him. And we don't want people getting hurt. Like dogs that are struggling, it's not just about if they bite us. Biting us isn't the only way for anybody to get hurt. A dog who is struggling could, lick the scissors while we're trying to scissor and end up with a cut tongue. They could end up kicking into the nail clippers and whacking off a huge amount of nail and having a toe that's bleeding. They could end up slicing themselves with the clippers. That I think a lot of owners aren't thinking about that. Or that, if we have to wrestle that dog with a bear hug. I had a customer at one time who said, yeah, but she didn't hurt anybody. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm covered in scratches. Well, you don't look like you're covered in scratches. I'm like, yeah, they're probably all going to show up as bruises over my entire torso because this dog was wrestling me and trying to kick away from me. We get hurt. And that's not the hairdresser's job. We're pet stylists. This is a spa, right? So this isn't emergency medicine. This is something different. And, for us to be able to tell people ahead of time, there are a lot of ways for injuries to happen in our setting. And so we need everybody to be safe. And we have a way to teach your dog to be safe. Yeah, tell them. Because I still have people say, but my dog just hates having his nails done. Great. Has anybody talked to you about how we can work on that? And they usually look at me and go, no, he just hates having his nails done. Like they really thought that was the end. Oh, what can you do, right? So when we explain our safety policy to customers or explain safety to other dog owners, right? When we talk about it, they now have an idea. Oh, my dog flailing around could get hurt or hurt somebody else. It's not just about biting, right? And it's not just about like, we'll just quickly get it done. Yeah, sure, quickly. We'll just do it quickly. So after you explain your safety policy, you're also going to explain, if you're a groomer or a trainer, you're going to explain to people too that that means your trim might not be perfect today, right? If your dog's having problems with it, we're not going to work on perfect trim. We're going to work on helping your dog be good for it. You'll still be paying for my time, right? So I'm a house caller, and what that means is I go into people's homes when I groom, they're already booking a time slot. So whether I get it, beautifully trimmed or we do partial trim and some brain work, they're still going to pay for that, right? You guys aren't losing money. I don't want groomers to be in this idea that like, oh my God, but they're never going to pay for that. When you explain it up front, I'm here to keep your dog safe because I am your professional. I am your professional. This is what I do. I'm going to keep your dog safe. We have a way to teach them to be good. Most owners appreciate that. Like that's actually what they're looking for. Most owners, they're looking for someone who's going to help them with this issue, right? So, and if they're not your customer, right? Someone who says, I don't care about your safety policy. I just want him to look like a Wheaton, like whatever, like that. Maybe your dog will be great. Maybe he won't. But if he's great, he'll look like a Wheaton. Of course, if that's possible, because sometimes, they want a different breed to look entirely different. But we want to make sure that they are armed with the knowledge, right? Because the other thing, too, about our safety policy is if their dog has some sort of physical condition, we need to know about it. And we need to tell them that with our safety policy. Like, are there any conditions I need to know about? Like, or we need to bring up things like, you know what? I don't want to get this dog stressed out because of his age. Well, because we don't want to anyway, but especially because of your dog's age or your dog's weight. That's a big one, right? Whether that be super, super underweight and frail, like some of our older dogs, or super, super overweight and a dog that if once they start getting frantic and they start panting could end up having heat stroke. Even if we're not using a hot dryer, but you know how that would end up in the news, like groomer kills dog in a dryer. Not that, morbidly obese dog dies of stress, like, so we need to talk about our safety so that we aren't being put in unsafe situations. So once you start talking about what the goal is, and we'll be able to talk to your customers about how to get to that goal, right? How you're going to work on it, how they work on it, how all of our fields work together, and why it's good for their vet. It'll be better for them. Don't wait until your dog has an ear infection to find out that he won't let you touch his ears, right? Get him used to being touched all over. So in the next part, we're going to talk more about how we work on those goals and how we express that to customers so that we can all start working toward a dog who is comfortable, calm, and cooperative, a dog who can handle the situation they're in, has loose body language, nice and relaxed, and will let us do whatever we need to do to them. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. I was working with a training customer this week, and they have 2 dogs. We're working on training. They're expecting a baby, so this is all just training stuff. But I found out that the dogs aren't good for nail trims. So it's part of what I ask about when I'm doing training and what I encourage other trainers to ask about. Make sure that dogs are comfortable with being handled all over for a variety of things for their lifetime. So let me tell you some of the advice that I give my owners, because I think that we can start there, right? So even if it means that we're talking to our owners about things that they can be doing. And one of the surprising things is that I find a lot of people still are following kind of the advice we were given as children, right? When we were kids, we were told, okay, don't hug a dog. Dogs don't like that. Or he's not comfortable with that and you need to stop. And while I talk about wanting dogs to be comfortable with things, we do have to know that we can push their boundaries a little bit, right? I'm not talking about being mean, but you know what? My dogs get hugged. I want to know I can wrap an arm around them and pick them up if I need to, or that the vet would be able to reach around and listen to their heartbeat with a stethoscope, or that a vet tech could hold them for blood drawing. There are a lot of reasons for them to be comfortable with that, right? And it might not be as a fun greeting, but it's certainly a skill that they need to know, right? So if we're always trying to avoid making our dogs feel uncomfortable, I think that that's not putting us in the role of being a responsible owner or pet parent or whichever way you think of that. And I know sometimes people, we all have different clientele that we're drawn to. I do fine with the people who are consider themselves like, the fur kids. I'm fine with them. I think they're a lot of fun. I have a good time with them because it's still not about spoiling your dog, right? You can give them all sorts of great stuff and have a dog who is really, really good for you, even if all you want to do is just play with them. Of course you can. We use play as a reward all the time, right? But also with the people who are much more stern, like, yeah, but I want them to be comfortable with it. It's not just about forcing a dog. It's about helping them be comfortable with things that maybe they weren't comfortable with before. And not necessarily with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? I mean, I want to know that a dog can be safe and make safe choices, but I don't expect to, bring them to downtown and have every person hug them. Like, that's not the kind of things that we want to do. But while we're at home working with them, I want you to, and this is, like I said, what I tell my owners, I want you to figure out what he's comfortable with and just do it a little bit longer. Right? And we talked before about the 3 steps of calm, and that's what I tell my owners too. Start with something that's calm. All right? Maintain calm as best you can, and ideally end on calm. So if a dog starts to struggle and get worried, I might hold on and calm them down again in my hands and then release them. Like, okay, I can release you when you're calm. You're okay, sweetie. It's just me, right? So for owners to be able to work around their dog. So for instance, yesterday was a huge snowstorm here in New England, and much of the rest of the East Coast. But here in New England, it was a big snowstorm, and I have to be able to wipe my dog's feet. I run a brush through them and get the snowballs out of their fur and pull snowballs out from between their toes, and that's just part of day-to-day life in winter. In the summer, it's wiping down from the rain. And I think that those are such important things for owners to be able to do and be able to do safely, that it's really at the core of being calm and comfortable and cooperative for things being done to you. So when I ask owners to reach around him, and, some of the larger dogs I know my owners can't pick up, but they can reach an arm underneath him and hold him as if they're going to pick him up, or reach an arm around just his back end and boost his backside up a little bit, even if it's just an inch or two. Get a dog used to being moved around in such a way that they feel like, oh, it's okay to be held close, held tight, and maybe have a foot lift off the ground, or 2 feet, or 4 feet, right? To get them used to having somebody look in their ears, really up close, not just peek, but, get in there, pretend you're doing eardrops, pretend you're doing eye ointment, look at a toe as if something is wrong, right? Like to be able to give your dog a quick exam, like, hey, let me take a look at you. Let me see if I can feel that bump, right? And an older dog might have some bumps that they are watching. So, but to have this ability to move around your dog anywhere you want and be able to touch them all over without the need for any extra tools or any extra treats or any extra stuff. Just go ahead and make that part of a normal day. Now, the other advice I give my owners, and only with dogs who are, pretty normal. Like, so even that stuff too, like if you think your dog is aggressive, certainly you need somebody hands-on directly working with you, right? We don't want anyone getting hurt doing this. However, most house pets, right? These dogs are living in people's houses. They're sleeping on the couch with them, right? They're fine for this stuff. You just have to be aware that it's important life skill for your groomer and for your vet and for yourself to be able to medicate your own dog and take care of your dog and brush your dog and check your own dog's teeth. All right. But one of the things I find too, people don't know how to play with their dogs. And what I mean by that is not just tossing a ball, but like get in there and goof around with them. Like if you've never reached over and like tickled your dog's butt, like play with them. Get them used to the idea that we can roughhouse a little when it's on cue, right? I'll roughhouse with my guys, not just because they want to roughhouse. I initiate it, and then I calm them down again when the game's over. But yeah, no, don't just make it about tossing toys and bringing them back, right? Get in there and play with your dog, because through play, dogs trust us more. And I know that sounds really, really like an assumption, but in my experience, that does seem to be true. The more you play with a dog and you're goofing around with them and not just throwing balls for them, but actually like interacting with them and shoving them around, maybe a little bit of wrestling and stuff, those dogs are far more relaxed with me after something like that. Like there's a trust that's built there that I think many of our owners should be doing with supervision, right? But be thinking about helping owners understand how this benefits them and that good behavior starts at home, right? So if we're working around a dog as if they are being groomed, I want you to think about that's not necessarily laying on a sofa and getting a foot massage, right? Because most groomers don't have a grooming sofa, right? We want them to be standing. If it's on the floor or on the stairs of the deck or on a bench or on a grooming table. Most people don't have a grooming table, but you don't have to have grooming equipment to kind of be thinking in terms of, all right, I want you to stand and let me do stuff. Maybe it's standing on the sofa while you sit in front of them and do some stuff, work on them a little bit. But to have them in this idea that like, oh, right, kind of like when they're groomed, right? So encouraging standing, encouraging being reached around, held, hugged, touched, touching with objects. And it's not that you need a grooming thing. I don't care if you're using the remote for the TV and just rub it down their back, right? You don't need anything special to get them used to being touched with stuff. Stuff. Could be their toys. And just teaching them like, oh, we're not playing right now. Well, I touch a ball along your backside, right? So when we talk to owners about the things that they can be doing, and tell them how we're doing similar things here at the shop or here at the animal hospital, right? Now, we've talked before about how treats aren't necessarily good in a shop environment, and some dogs won't take them in a shop environment. So because of that, I would say when working toward this goal, a dog who is comfortable, calm, cooperative, I would say try without treats instead of worrying about having to fade treats out later. right? If you choose to use treats, just keep in mind you'll probably be fading them out later, right? If targeting and active participation is the way that your dog is going to need to learn how to do this, that's okay. You can start there, probably with a trainer, right? Um, but keep in mind that's going to have to get faded out too, because that ultimately can be unsafe in a grooming environment, in a vet environment, or even at home if you have to check a wound, right? Um, reward markers can be very hard to use in a shop. So, like things like a clicker could be hard to use. So just be thinking about if we take it at its most basic, which is I want to start off with what this dog can handle and start with calm. Whatever little nugget they can handle and start there and maintain calm and end with calm and do little bursts. Maybe it's a matter of turning on a dryer when you're not going to use it. And again, trainers, this is a great example of groomers with not enough hands. So there are plenty of times I'm getting a dog used to dryer sounds, and I have the dryer on, and I have the nozzle kind of like held between my knees, and I've got like one hand on the dog and the other hand is brushing, right? So, so I'm just running a noise while I'm working on something else to get them acclimated to, oh, that's the noise. Okay, right? So there are lots of ways that we add things and help them be comfortable before we just all out dryer next to your ear, right? So be thinking about helping them be calm and helping them remain calm and returning to calm as our baseline for calm, comfortable, and cooperative. And that really helps with everybody. It really does. So a dog who is calm and cooperative is far more likely to be good for the vet too. Is far more likely to be good for an owner who needs to give an ear medication or an eye medication. And I know we're getting toward the end of the podcast, but quick story. One of my own guys, we were out in the woods, and I noticed he suddenly started limping. And I'm like, oh no. So I had to go over. I called him over. We kind of met in the middle because I'm not thinking about obedience in that moment, but I said his name and we met in the middle. And I lifted up his paw, and he had ripped a pad. So I had to take a look at it, right? Now I've got to move some gravel around. That had to hurt, right? That hurts. So I'm moving some gravel around on his paw. I bring him over to like this little creek, and I kind of rinse it off quick and get a feel for if I'm going to have to carry him out of the woods, right? So he's about a 45-pound dog. I decided it wasn't bad enough that I needed to carry him out of the woods, but he would have let me, right? He came over to me knowing I was going to have to mess with that paw that's already sore, knowing I was going to have to do stuff that was going to hurt, right? And knowing that I might choose to pick him up. I mean, I put him on leash, like, sorry, buddy, because he was pretty happy to just continue running on it. But I'm put him on leash. You and I were going to walk real slow, and the other dog's getting to run loose. So that was unfair. If someone had come along and said, oh my gosh, you're carrying an injured dog. Here, let me help you. He would have allowed that too, right? He would have been a little bit more apprehensive about it, but he would have allowed it, So then I got him back to the car. And because I'm a groomer and a house call groomer, my stuff was in the car, and I had, my first aid kit there too. So I've got out some vet wrap and wrapped his paw and loaded him in the car. But because he is comfortable with things that are going to hurt, things that are uncomfortable, he knows how to be calm about that. And that's really what I'm getting at, is that we can't just say, oh, well, if you're not comfortable with it, we won't do it. No, we need to push that boundary more. We need them to feel like I can trust you with things I'm not comfortable with. I'm safe with you with things I'm not comfortable with. And hopefully they become comfortable with it. But if we always wait until they're just comfortable in an emergency, like out in the woods, what if he had decided to just not come back to me? Nope. I got a boo-boo foot and I don't want to be near you now. Right? And that happens. It happens far more often than we'd like to think. So I know we covered a lot of stuff, but think about the ways that we can talk to our customers about this. Like, hey, how is he at home? Can you reach around him? Can you boost his bum? Does he give you a hard time if you need to lift his tail and clean off his backside? How is he when you have to pull out snowballs? Will he let you take a look at him? and get people thinking that they have a training issue that we need to overcome. The dogs should be comfortable with their people. So, all right, everybody, have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. I'm also happy to come to you if you're near my area in southern New Hampshire. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.